Have you ever felt like you can hear someone talking, but you just can't quite make sense of the words? Well, today we're diving into a fascinating condition that's all about that feeling. It's about hearing, but it's not really an ear problem. It's a brain problem. We're talking about auditory processing disorder, or APD. And really, this quote from audiologist Dr. Jack Katz just nails it. It's so simple, right? Auditory processing is what we do with what we hear. It's not about the sound getting in, it's all about what happens after it arrives. And that one idea, that's the key to this whole thing. You know, for most of us, hearing just happens. It feels automatic. But what if it wasn't? What if your brain had to struggle and fight to make sense of the sounds that your ears are picking up perfectly? That's the big question we're going to unpack together. Okay, so to get what goes wrong with APD, we first have to see what's supposed to go right. And honestly, it's incredible. I want you to think of hearing as this amazing journey that sound takes along a super fast, super complex neural superhighway, starting at your ear and racing to the deepest parts of your brain. So here's a roadmap of that journey. First, you've got the on-ramp. Sound waves hit your ear and get turned into an electrical signal. Then, bam, that signal hits a bunch of checkpoints in the brainstem, which are kind of like a high-tech sorting facility, figuring out basic stuff like where did that sound come from? From there, it gets relayed up to the final destination, the auditory cortex. And that's where the real magic happens, where the brain finally understands, oh, that's my name being called. And here's what's so cool about this whole system. It has this feature called internal redundancy. Basically, our brain isn't relying on just one single road for sound. Nope. It's got multiple, overlapping highways. Info from your right ear zips over to both sides of your brain, and same for the left. It's a seriously robust, built-in backup system designed to make sure the message almost always gets through no matter what. Okay, so we have this brilliant, practically fail-safe system, but what happens when there's a problem? What if, despite all those backup routes, there's a traffic jam on that neural superhighway? What happens when the signal gets scrambled? And this is so important to understand. It's not about being deaf. A person with APD can hear a loud noise like a fire alarm, no problem. The issue is with the details, the nuance. Imagine trying to listen to your favorite song, but there's constant static. Or trying to follow one conversation when it feels like 3 different people are talking in your ear at once. The sound is there, but it's all jumbled up and exhausting to piece together. So what does that scrambling actually look like in day-to-day life? Well, it might mean you say, put your coat on the hook, but your kid hears, put your coat on the boat. Or trying to follow a simple multi-step direction like go to your room, grab your backpack, and meet me by the door becomes this massive, almost impossible challenge. And trying to have a conversation in a busy restaurant, forget about it. All that background noise just turns into an overwhelming wall of sound. All right, so we've seen how sound is supposed to travel, and we felt what it's like when that signal gets garbled. Now, let's get a little more precise and put an official name on it. What exactly is auditory processing disorder? And, just as important, what is it not? So here's the formal definition. And the key part is right there. Even though hearing is normal, this is not an ear problem. Let me say that again. It is not an ear problem. The hardware, your ear, is working perfectly. It's the software, the brain's processing centers, that's having a tough time running the program. Now, it's super easy to get APD mixed up with something called language processing disorder, or LPD, but they're really different. With APD, the problem is telling the difference between the raw sounds, like sh and ch. The acoustic signal itself is fuzzy. With LPD, you hear those sounds just fine, but your brain struggles to attach meaning to the words they make. It's the difference between a bad radio signal and a crystal clear broadcast in a language you don't understand. And here's another really common mix-up: ADHD. A child with APD can totally look like they're not paying attention, but it's often because their brain is working in overdrive, just trying to figure out what was said. The inattention is a symptom of that struggle. Now, with ADHD, the auditory system might be working perfectly, but the brain's attention center just has trouble locking onto the information. Same behavior on the outside, but a totally different cause on the inside. So if it's not a hearing problem, and it can look like these other conditions, how in the world do you actually figure out if someone has APD? Well, it takes some pretty specialized detective work. Yeah, you definitely can't find APD with that standard raise your hand when you hear the beep hearing test. That just shows the ears work. Instead, an audiologist uses what's called a test battery, a whole series of tests designed to push the brain's listening skills to the absolute limit and see where the cracks start to show. They're not testing if you can hear, they're testing how well you can listen. And some of these tests are pretty wild. They might have you try to repeat sentences while a recording of a noisy cafeteria is blasting in the background. Or they'll test if your brain can notice tiny, split-second gaps of silence between sounds, which is essential for telling the difference between words like boat and coat. And one of the most common is called dichotic listening, where they play different numbers in each of your ears at the same time and ask you to repeat them all. It's a direct challenge to see how well the two sides of your brain are talking to each other. But here's the really good news. Getting a diagnosis isn't the end of the story. It's actually the beginning of a much better one. Because there are a ton of effective ways to manage APD and help the brain build stronger listening skills. So what does that look like? Well, management usually takes two different approaches at the same time.